I'm Jake Peterson.
And I'm Schademann.
Today we're here to talk about post-game comments about the Oregon-Ohio State game. What were your thoughts?
In the first half, I think Ohio State was dominant in the first half as far as I'm concerned, with Ezekiel Elliott doing a very terrific job of running the ball for the Buckeye offense. And also give credit to the Buckeye offensive line for creating those holes for Ezekiel Elliott to run through that tough Oregon defense of the Pac-12. And also I believe that Cardell Jones, for his only third start of his career, played very, very well under that pressure. Despite the Ohio State Buckeyes committing 2 turnovers in the first half, the Oregon Ducks did not capitalize on their mistakes. And that's what I have for that, and over to you.
Yeah, I think Ohio State dominated that game from start to finish in every phase of the game. They dominated the line of scrimmage, they dominated the passing game, they dominated the run game. There was just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Ohio State just won. They won that game fair and square. I did predict Ohio State to win, if you can recall in my previous video. Though I did say, though, if Ohio State were to win this game, they couldn't turn the ball over. They turned the ball over 4 times in that game. They still won by 22 points. And 3 of those 4 times were in the red zone. Ohio State should have won this game by a million, as far as I'm concerned. They just played that well in that game, and Oregon, to me, they just weren't as good as what the media and the experts thought. And it showed on the scoreboard, and it showed in the stats. Ezekiel Elliott, though, he went off 243 rushing yards. And I did say that Oregon's run defense, I thought, looked very vulnerable against Florida State, and I thought that Ohio State may have taken advantage of that. They did. Ohio State, give them credit too, they also bottled up Marcus Mariota, and that ended up being the determining factor in that game.
I definitely agree, Jake. Yeah, just like what Jake mentioned, Ezekiel Elliott was just a total beast as far as I'm concerned. And especially when he had like 6 or 7 yards a carry against in the national championship game, that's amazing. And also, in my opinion, the Pac-12 this year was a little overrated, in my opinion. I mean, a little overhyped by the national media, because and that was shown in that game on Monday, because Ohio State embarrassed Oregon as far as I'm concerned. They took their best punch, but it was not even close to being enough for Ohio State to be vulnerable. Oregon was just not ready for the physical offense of Ohio State and what they run, and especially with this option and this quick style of ball they played, in Ohio State's quickness on the defensive side really bit them in the butt as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I thought Oregon, something I noticed with Oregon year in and year out, they dominate the Pac-12 because the Pac-12 doesn't have any defense. Yeah. I mean, let's face it, Stanford is usually the only team year in, year out that has a consistently based defense, which is why Stanford beats them almost every year. Oregon struggles against the legit defenses, and it shows, again, in this game, a perfect proven point that they just don't match up well. And when you look at the Pac-12 as a whole, this is a conference that always struggles on defense. This is a conference that's never been ecstatic on defense, very undersized for the most part. You do have some valuable, NFL draft players out of it, but it seems like there's only 1 or 2 of them out of the defensive side, and then that's it. Washington has a few good, decent players, but however, Oklahoma State definitely, I felt, really exposed their defense, and then of course USC, with Leonard Williams, but then there's no one else around them. I mean, the pass defense is terrible for USC. So I think when you look at the Pac-12 from top to bottom, everybody says that they have a lot of depth, but I just don't think there's as much depth there as what people want it to be. I think Stanford had a very down year. I think USC was very inconsistent. Oregon, to me, was bar to none the best team in that conference, and I thought there was a lot of overhype around that whole Oregon football team. I thought Ohio State made them look silly. I mean, it wasn't even a game, frankly. It shouldn't have been a game. I mean, Ohio State just beat them that badly. It had those turnovers and not happened. And, to me, this is just an Oregon team that's going to have to figure out a lot for next season, because losing Marcus Mariota, which was arguably the whole team, it's going to be interesting to see. We're going to find out a lot about Mark Helfrich's club next season.
Yeah, definitely agree. Yeah, just like what Jake mentioned as well. The Pac-12 has a terrible defensive schemes, in my opinion.
Yeah.
They have no defensive options. All they are is about flash and offense and see how many touchdowns they create and if they can outscore you. Because their defense, as far as I'm concerned, is pathetic.
Yeah.
It's and it really showed on Monday night when you do not stop and you Ezekiel Elliott and when you do not tackle as well as you can, Ezekiel Elliott will burst through those holes and he will go for long touchdowns, and that's what he did against Oregon, and Oregon got their butt kicked.
Yeah.
And that's why after that.
Yeah, I thought Ohio State, to give them credit, I mean, they really played a good game, like I said, in every phase. Cardale Jones, I thought, was the true MVP of that game, though. He made the plays when he needed to. He was efficient. Despite that interception, which wasn't his fault, it was in and out of the hands of his receiver in the end zone. It should have been a catch. So I think when you look at Ohio State, though, as a team for next season, this could be a really dangerous team. Well, it will be a dangerous team next season. It'll be interesting to see what Ezekiel Elliott does. He is a sophomore. He's technically eligible for the draft next season. I don't think he'll go to the draft, but you never know. I do think, though, they have a lot of weapons back on defense and offense. They are losing their top receiver, though, Devin Smith. So it'll be interesting to see what Ohio State does in that position. But I'll be curious to see, too, what Tim Beck brings to the table for Ohio State's offense. Obviously, losing Tom Herman, it's going to hurt him a little bit. But I'll be interested, of course. I think everybody's interested to see on who Urban Meyer starts next season. Will it be Braxton Miller? Will it be J.T. Barrett? Or could it even be Cardale Jones? It's a mystery to me. I don't know. What do you think?
I definitely agree, Jake. Yeah, like that quarterback controversy in Columbus is going to be rampant this off season for Urban Meyer's club, as far as I'm concerned, because there'll be a lot of critics and critics of all three quarterbacks, but they're also going to be also praising on how good those three quarterbacks are as well. And just like Jake has mentioned, it'll be interesting to see how their offense works without Tom Herman, who left to take the Houston coaching job in Houston. And coming in is Tim Beck, who came from Nebraska, and he kind of was struggling on the offensive front of the ball for the Cornhuskers, and it'll be interesting to see maybe if he has some talent now. And to see how he can actually use that offense and to make it even better, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
And that's all after that as well.
Yeah. My overall thoughts on Ohio State's season and Oregon's season. I thought Oregon's season was a success. I mean, Marcus Mariota had a very good season. There's no denying that. I will be curious to see what he does in the NFL. I think he's very injury prone. But yeah, Oregon definitely, to me, they're a better team than I thought at the beginning of the season. I thought Oregon lost a lot of players, on the offensive side. They lost a lot of their own linemen last year. They lost Anthony Thomas, of course, a very big-time playmaker. They lost a few of their receivers, and I thought, well, this Oregon team's going to struggle, I think, a little bit. We'll find out a lot about Marcus Mariota this season. We found out a lot about him, and he was really good. And that's why Oregon had so much success. And, I thought that all in all, Oregon's season was pretty good. Ohio State, yeah, they're huge success for Ohio State, of course. After losing to Virginia Tech at the shoe, it looked like not only Ohio State was done, but the Big Ten was done. But they fought back. I thought J.T. Barrett, of course, got better and better as the season went along. Of course, the injury kind of stopped him, and then Cardale Jones came into the picture. Cardale Jones, I wouldn't freak out about him yet. Keep in mind, I don't think Cardale Jones has played against a legit defense yet. I mean, Alabama's defense is mediocre. Wisconsin's defense isn't the greatest in the world. And Oregon's defense, of course, as we all know, I mean,
it's pathetic.
Yeah, it's just not there. So I will be interested to see if Urban Meyer does start Cardale Jones, which I don't think he's going to. I think he's going to end up going towards J.T. Barrett. But with that being said, though, I think Ohio State, Cardale Jones did a really good job, though. You got to give him credit, nevertheless. But yeah, I thought at the beginning of the season, though, Ohio State looked like it was going to be a disaster of a season, and they fought back. Credit to Tom Herman and Urban Meyer. They really made the adjustments they needed to in that quarterback position, and it's frankly an amazing story. Not only did they win a national championship, but they won the first 14th playoff national championship.
Yeah, I definitely agree, Jake. Yeah, Tom Herman did an unbelievable job as offensive coordinator for Ohio State and Urban Meyer, as far as I'm concerned. And I'm happy for him to finally get a coaching job as a head coach. And just what Jake has mentioned earlier, I do agree that Oregon had a really good year, but they did not have a great year. Yeah. A great year would have been a national title and Mariota taking that title back to Eugene, but that did not happen because Cardell Jones played a very, very, very well managed game for his only third start of the year in his career as well. And I believe that Cardell Jones will have a legitimate shot to be the starting quarterback in next year's squad for the Buckeyes, and also as far as and just like what you mentioned earlier with the defenses is concerned, I agree that he has not played a defense at all so far in his career. Alabama, just like what he mentioned earlier, is mediocre. Oregon is pathetic, and Wisconsin struggled against Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game in Indianapolis. And also, what I need to bring attention to is that whenever do you remember when Ohio State turned the ball over in the first couple of drives of the second half, and Oregon got a 10-0 run to cut their lead down to 1, and then Ezekiel Elliott took a touchdown to the house, make it an 8-point game, and that really flipped flipped the tide for the Buckeyes as far as I'm concerned. And Ezekiel Elliott had a very, very good game, and I believe that he was the choice for MVP, and I do agree with the college football playoff on giving him the MVP, because without Ezekiel Elliott, they would have not won that game.
No, I agree, and my overall thoughts on the playoff committee's situations this year, I thought there were some flaws, definitely. First of all, I still think they missed the best team in the country. I think they left the best team in the country out of that playoff, and I thought that was TCU. I thought Jeff Long was very misleading, when it came to being a spokesperson. When Reese Davis was asking him a bunch of questions on ESPN, he never answered them, and he would twist his words a lot of times. To me, it was just a bunch of nonsense watching him talk. But nevertheless, though, I still think they did get it right from the standpoint of having the teams they did have in there, because you couldn't take out Florida State, although they didn't deserve to be in there, but you couldn't take them out because they weren't undefeated. Alabama, the SEC is going to get all the love. We all know that. Oregon, they were shown, they showed that they deserved to be in it. And of course, Ohio State, those two obviously showed they deserve to be in it. So I think when you look at the playoff committee's situation, I think they do need to change it up a little bit. Quit looking, they got to start to look ahead to the future. They take it 1 week at a time, and that's just not right. Because we all know what you're ranking them for eventually, and it's for the 14th playoff, and that's what you have to look towards. And that, to me, ended up being very misleading, especially for TCU and the Big 12. So, but it'll be interesting to see if they make any changes next season.
So what you recommend, a 6-team or an 8-team playoff?
18 definitely. I would recommend an 18 playoff. Like I said, I truly believe that they missed the best team. They left the best team in the country out of the picture.
And now we are going to wrap up with our predictions for next year as for the 2016 college football playoff. I got Alabama, Ohio State, TCU, and Baylor.
Yeah, this was kind of a coin toss for me. I think this will be the year where you could get 2 teams from one conference. From what it looks like right now, I think the Pac-12 is going to be very young overall, and the ACC, of course, I think is, they're always questionable. So I think you got TCU, Ohio State, LSU. I think will be a team, if they can get a quarterback. I think they'll be a team to watch. And you can't forget about either Alabama or Baylor. I think either one of those two could be also right in there as well. And so, obviously, very early prediction for the 4-team playoff, but that's what I'm seeing right now. But yeah.
Yeah, and that's all we have today. And go Big Ten and the Go Buckeyes. And thanks for your time.